I'm so excited today. This episode of the Business of Beautiful Spaces, I am joined with Gabriela Eisenhart of Silo Studios for a powerful conversation about how interior designers can confidently begin integrating construction into their revenue streams. From procurement and vendor communication to client expectations and liability concerns, we cover it all. Gabriela shares her expert insight and breaks down the first essential steps for designers who want to add construction management to their services while boosting profitability and maintaining control over the design vision. If you have ever considered this expansion but aren't sure where to start, well, this episode is for you. Hi there, interior design lovers. Welcome back to the Business of Beautiful Spaces, the podcast where we blend design inspiration with all behind-the-scenes tips and tricks you need to thrive in your business. I'm your host, Laura Thornton, and with over 27 years in this interior design game and running a seven-figure design company, trust me, I've seen it all. I want to be your interior design bestie. I want to help you build the business of your dreams, make more money, and yes, ditch the stress along the way. I've been doing this for a long time, and now I'm sharing my knowledge with all of you, my fellow designers and decorators. All I ask in return is that you like, review, and follow this podcast wherever you listen, so other designers can find us and learn more too. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into making 2025 your best business year yet. Welcome back to another episode of the Business of Beautiful Spaces. Welcome, Gabriela. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm excited to talk about profitability in construction because, as I was just saying to you, there's not a lot of us designers that take on the challenge of the construction, and I think it's something that people would love to know more about. So can you tell me how you got into interior design, your journey?
Yeah. Well, I've started my company 13 years ago. I just wasn't happy in my career at the time, and it was a really organic start for me. You know, I just bought a home and I had done my home and people started asking me to do their homes. And, you know, I said, well, why not jump in, head first and let's just start a company and let's do this. And, I know today we're going to talk about construction, but obviously when I started, it was very much just furnishings. And honestly, actually, I think about a year or two in, I started construction. And it was little projects. I'd take on a kitchen, I'd take on a bathroom, and I just really loved it. I loved having my hands on the full transformation, really being able to get down to the bones of the home and rebuild. That was really satisfying for me. And from there, it just grew. And now I'd say our company, it's 78 to 80% construction, and it's a lot of remodels. I mean, I would do new builds, but it's mostly remodels. So we're getting homeowners that are hiring us, bringing us in to, it could be just a bathroom, it could be 3 bathrooms and a kitchen, or it can be the whole house. Really span.
And what made you so comfortable with starting to get into that? Because is it your background? Because it's not often that someone just decides, yep, I'm just going to start learning about all the things that plumbing, HVAC, electrical, all those things. Like, yes, it's good in theory on a plan, but to actually start executing it is, always something really interesting.
I will say that I learned the hard way. I've learned my lessons the hard way. No, it's not my background. I don't come from a construction family. I come from a family of business owners. And so I think that always gave me the confidence to go in and learn and do things myself. But I've always partnered with really wonderful construction teams. And I think maybe that's how I've grown my business, because I really manage that process. And I learned so much along the way, and just starting small and building my way up. And I mean, I'm a firm believer the best way to learn is by making the mistakes,
It's true.
There were a lot of those in the beginning, but now, knock on wood, it's smooth sailing, and we really have our process down and know what we're doing.
So your process, so you will design it and you will execute as the GC, and you bring in teams to help you with the construction.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, exactly. I'd say a majority of our projects, the clients are coming to us with the project, and then they're wanting to hire out our teams, which is what I prefer, but to have full control. Now, there are times when clients come to us and they already have their build partners and they want us to collaborate, and that works as well too. But that changes the way we structure, how we're making money. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit more, because I think as designers need to understand how you have to be flexible, and there's different ways you go about construction depending on how the clients come to you. And I spend a lot of time with my peers and fellow designers, and I hear way too much. I hear like they just say, "How are you profitable in construction?" They say, "I just hope that they're gonna want to furnish at the end of the project." And I'm like, you cannot go into months long construction that's going to take all your bandwidth and not be profitable until you hope they buy furniture. And chances are they're not, because they're going to be exhausted from this renovation or tapped out, financially.
Yeah, or over budget.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's funny you say that because, of course, this is what we do at my studio as well, which is why I was so excited to chat with you today because there's very few designers that do what we do. And I'm finding they're afraid, which is why I think this
Yeah.
is such a great podcast. They're afraid and they don't even know where to start. And so I love what you just said because how often have we designed it everything to the furniture and the furniture's supposed to be phase two and we'll do
Yeah.
it like 3 months before we're ready to close, but then it doesn't happen because they're out of money, they're exhausted. They
Yeah.
decided on things that wasn't, that are above and beyond their budget. And so they're like, we'll do it next year. And then the next year comes and it's hasn't happened. So you're 100% correct. You cannot bank on the furniture. You have to make money all the way
Right.
along and not be giving it away for other people to make. And I also love what you said because I think this was key with our clients was they loved that it was a one stop. There's not 100 different people that are coming at them with invoices and checks. We
Yeah.
took that on.
Yeah.
That's part of our project management. I'm like making us look like
Yeah.
I'm a hand talker, but only you
No,
can see me.
okay.
I've got like the world above my head here. But like our clients sign one contract with us, we're going to manage all those parts and they know the schedule of when they're owed money to us and we will disperse as opposed to multiple vendors, contractors, all these people coming in, and then it just feels like they're constantly writing checks. So it's a much more enjoyable process for our clients when they know
Yeah.
exactly what's coming and when they owe money. So yeah, like I couldn't agree more that you cannot wait and hope that the fingers crossed that the contractor is going to bring you back in either. Like that's the other thing, they don't own it that way too. So okay, so at what point did you start thinking that, like, was it right away that you thought construction, or was it a like couple of years into your business?
I think it just organically happened. I think I
Yeah.
was about a year or two in when I took on my first kitchen. And it was like we're changing finishes. It wasn't like we're gutting everything. But after that, it started just organically happening, project after project. And we do many full home renos where we're down to the studs, rebuilding, to smaller one-offs where it's a kitchen or bathroom. And I really love kitchen and bathroom design. I feel like that's where I really thrive.
So this is more a personal question for me. I take everything down to the studs if we're touching any project, doesn't
Yeah,
matter what project it is, because then I can warranty that project for our clients because I know that we touched everything in the walls before that. Like it's not just like,
sure.
I don't know about you, but I always feel like if I'm going to touch it, I want to know what's behind that drywall
Yeah,
just because God forbid there's ever, knock on wood, like an insurance
yeah.
situation or something happens, then I
Mhm.
know exactly what we touched and we have photographs all the way through the process to know what
I
we've
love
what
that.
we've done. Like I don't know about you, but I always like that. I know it's a bit more involved, but I take it right back to the studs. The clients are like, "What?" But I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know what's back there." It
Oh,
happened to us recently. We were doing a little powder room reno for a client slash friend of mine, and her husband had done this bathroom 20 years ago, and they moved into this house. And if I hadn't taken it down to the drywall, the plumbing wasn't attached in the wall. So now we would have done a reno, again, a little, little cutesy reno, nothing crazy. But if I
yeah,
hadn't have taken down the drywall, then in 3 months would it actually would have leaked anyway, regardless
yeah,
that we touched it. It looked like it was
right.
us.
Yeah.
Anyway, just
No,
my
that's really smart. Do you have a GC license, or do you bring in your like a GC partner?
So I have in-house GC, but it's solely for us. But we don't have to have that in Toronto.
Okay.
So I know different places are
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
situations. So, but I do have to carry different insurances because he's under the umbrella of once I once I take all the payments from my clients, now I'm liable. So I have to
Mhm.
have certain
Right.
insurances, and I have to have we have workers' compensation board here. I have to have that as well for him, like for
Right.
his team. So it's just a different way of doing it. But I know every state for the
Yeah.
US and provinces here have different things. So make sure if you are listening and you're thinking about bringing in construction into your business, that you do know what you're responsible for. But yeah, so once I started making it easy for my clients by one contract, one payment
Yeah.
schedule, I had to start taking on some liabilities of that, which
Exactly.
is I think is what scares people. But
Hmm.
if you don't have insurance on your company already, you should.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, you should.
That should be the first thing. And then really, it's not that much more to carry it. So, but I think the responsibility and the lack of knowledge is what scares people. So I know we're going to get into that, but
Yeah.
I got us off topic just out of my own curiosity with the construction processes that
Well,
you
no,
have.
I love that you do that. And I would say, if there's a facelift, no, we're not taking it down to the studs, but I think it is really smart because that happens all the time. And especially with older homes, there's
Yeah.
something already leaking behind the walls. Just happened
Yeah.
at my house, a painting fell off the wall and was molded because we had this slow leak in the wall we didn't know about,
Right.
from a bathroom, you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we had another one like that where it was like just, a small, like we didn't have to take the drywall down, but they kept telling us that there was a scent, which was really just
Mm.
code for a really bad smell come spring and
Yeah.
fall. And so
Yeah.
we were like, that's weird. We need to see what it was. Well, there was like, in between two studs was a graveyard of mice. Graveyard. It was a country
Oh
home. It
gosh.
was just so the smell was the decompose,
Yeah.
like when it was
Yeah.
thawing. And anyway, so we were like very grateful we took it
Not
down. Not
fun.
that you can stop a mouse if you wanted to, but it
Yeah.
was really nasty. So I was
Ew.
really glad that I wasn't there for that little moment. But anyway, okay. So I mean, I could be here all day with you, so I do have to reel myself in. So
I
let's
love
jump
I
into I think a lot of designers do hesitate to get into construction in their business.
yeah. I
Eh,
mean, it's stressful. It's not for the weak, I will
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
So what would you say is your biggest challenge with bringing
I
that
mean,
into your business?
the biggest challenge with construction, I mean, it's managing client expectations. And, I've worked with the teams I've worked with for many years. So, um, it's it's smooth, but even managing your construction partners can be tough. And what we're struggling with mostly, it's not the GCs that I've worked with forever, it's their trades that they're bringing in. So I don't control that as much. They're choosing who they're bringing in. And, you're just managing a bunch of people and then managing the client expectations. And that's the toughest part of it. That's the toughest part that can really wear you down. And that's why it's so important to understand your process and understand how you're communicating throughout this process, because you will become a marriage counselor, you will become
Yes.
all of these things. And the clients really don't know what they're getting into until their house is ripped apart. And there's a lot of emotions that go with that. So trying to communicate throughout the process is so, so important.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think a good point is the clear communication. Because even when I started just doing like decorating, like designing
Yeah.
their space and picking furniture, it's the same process. You're still setting up the expectations. You're still explaining what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
then you walk away and behind the scenes, you're still coordinating with all of the different vendors. You're still coordinating
Yep.
with the shipper and the receiver and the delivery team. So it's actually the same logistics. You're
Mhm.
just applying it in a different way, which is what I try to explain to some designers and decorators when they talk to me about getting into construction. Yes, it's overwhelming when you don't know construction, but to your point, start with a small bathroom. Start with maybe something really small that requires a little bit of construction and ask questions. I grew up in a house where my father was a builder, so I grew up seeing it, but never asked anything. Just lived it, smelt it. Like I still always say, I love the smell of sawdust and paint, but I never
Mhm.
asked any questions. And then when
Yeah.
I transitioned into doing this, my dad was retired, and so I was asking questions on sites for other like to other GCs and other contractors or other trades, and I was asking, "Why are you doing that? What's happening here?" So you ask the questions because they'll explain it to you, and then it builds your confidence, and then you'll
Well,
have all that confidence moving forward to explain it to your client.
You do. You really have to understand it, especially like we handle all the ordering and procurement, and that's really where we end
Us
up,
too.
making money. And it's funny, I'm working on a project now where the client did hire the builder before us, so we're working with a new builder, and it's been a lovely experience. And they were saying to us, "Wow, we love working with you guys. You guys are so organized. You wouldn't believe what we deal with." And they were really just saying that they deal with designers that don't, will argue, be like, well, why do you need the plumbing fixtures on site at the beginning? It's like, well, you need to install the valves before you do.
Yes.
So you really have to understand the order of how construction works. I think that is important when you're jumping into it. Otherwise, you're not going to be respected by, the teams on site. They're going to just think you're coming in and barking orders. It is important to learn and ask those questions. I think
Hmm.
that's the best way to learn.
Yeah. And to your point with the contractors, we make them look good. Like if you're working with a contractor and that's how you're going to start building this end of your business
Yeah.
and you're going to let's say like I remember I used to specify for builders. Like I wasn't doing it yet. I was just specifying for them. And then they would tell me when the projects were over that the ones that we specified, even just the hard surfaces for them, were the only ones they could photograph to use to get the net because it was curated. And
Yeah.
even though there wasn't any furniture or there wasn't any of the pretty things, the
Mhm.
lighting, the hardware, the
Yeah.
kitchen, like at least they could photograph the bare bones so that they could get the next project. And if
Yeah.
the client didn't have a designer working, then they couldn't photograph them because he said it was like a dog's breakfast, right? Like the countertops really didn't match the.
Yeah.
So like we make them look better to get more jobs. So I thought that was always a really interesting comment that they had made to me, which is also what drove me to be like, this is not something I couldn't do. So I love
Mhm.
that you said that you procure everything because I do that too. And I've been in many of like, I've listened to the podcast, I've been in many master classes, I've done all the things over the years. And a lot of people say to not procure and let the GC do it. And I always feel the opposite because you're leaving money. Why would you let them put that money in? You picked it, you
Yep.
selected it. Why are you not buying it? So I wanted to dive into a little bit of that because that to me is also something that we do. And it also really changed my bottom line in my business as far
Yeah.
as profitability goes. And I wanted to, how far do you like everything? Because we buy everything down to the hardware, the handles, the doors, like the whole nine.
Everything but like 2x4s and insulation we'll buy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
same, yeah, same deal. So, and it's interesting because it's this year I've been toying with work. I've worked with a builder who is insistent on purchasing, so I can speak on both accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And for
Mm-hmm.
years, I've done all the procurement, and so I'm sitting here looking at the numbers because when I work with a builder who is procuring and they have a cost plus structure, doesn't go as smoothly. And then we're taking a fee, we're taking a referral fee from them, and it's not the profit is not quite what it would be if we were doing it on our own. However, we don't have the headache of, this valve doesn't work or this plumbing fixture needs to be sent back. But I have the staff that manages that, so it doesn't bother me. I would prefer for us to everything be running through us.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's
yeah.
not like everything has something wrong with it. That's just,
No,
those are
yeah,
it happens.
it
Yeah, it
happens.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's the thing too. People I think, are afraid of that. But again, it's the same difference if you're ordering fabric to make drapery, and then you have to order
Yep.
the rods, and then you have to, get the installer to come. It's all the same elements. You're just applying
Right.
it to something different. And
Yes.
someone said to me recently, like, "Oh, there's no money in tiles," or "Oh, there's no money," and I was like, "Do you like?" Like, because I love that you said you look at your analytics and your data, and that's what I use all my numbers for too. But I'm sometimes realizing I don't think people are because the one thing that has taken a hit for sure over the years is plumbing. Lighting
Yeah.
is really, and now it's going to do it again with tariffs and things. But
Mhm.
these are the things that I think are the least money makers. But when you're doing a whole house or you're doing a whole floor of a reno, those little pennies add up into dollars, which add up into four figures, five figures, six figures, depending
Yes.
on the project. So it's like anything, all those little items eventually make a difference in your bottom line. And I don't know why it's so easy and flippant to say, well, there's no money in it. I disagree. It means you're not finding
Yeah.
the right vendor.
And, and talk to your vendors. We have
Yeah.
lasting relationship with your vendors. I look at my vendors every 6 months and how much I'm purchasing from them, and I don't wait for them to come to me. I say, "Hello, a
Yes.
good year. What are you going to do for me?"
Oh, you're
But
like, you're warming my heart.
and
I love that.
and they are always, because we are purchasing from them and we're using a lot, we're purchasing a lot. They go, "Oh, of course we're going to bump that percentage up for you." So I think it's, we all get so busy. This is a tough business and there's a lot of balls in the air and we have to focus on in so many different areas, especially as business owners. But take the time to look at that data
It's huge.
and just
Yeah.
ask,
I
you
love you. You are literally speaking my love language, which is dollars and cents, because
Me
I
too.
have a thing called the Profit Academy. I teach other designers how to
Oh,
be
love it.
profitable in their business.
Yeah.
And that is it. If you're not using your analytics or you're not looking at your data and you're not like accounting data is just as important as your hours. And I use that every year, January, July. I look at those numbers and do the exact same thing because you can literally see how much money you've given all your vendors over the last 6 months to a year and ask for steeper discounts. And they want the business. They want you to come back. They want you to keep using them. And they will save you time and they'll make you more money because they want to
Yeah.
work on your behalf. I love that. That is exactly
It,
what I teach people to do in every
it works
aspect of their
every time.
business. It
Yes.
really does.
So
Yeah.
actually, I would say some of my profit margins with tile are really, really great because of those relationships, and plumbing. Yeah, plumbing can be difficult, but you just ask, you do the best you can. But it's the bigger picture, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm getting 30% here, 20% here, whatever. It's the bigger picture at the end of the job
Yeah.
that, with the overall profit margins.
Totally. And I always tell people to like, don't look at your numbers after you've presented. Look at them before to make sure that you're running at the proper profit margins that make your business work. Because if
Mhm.
you're looking at it after, it's too late. Like
Yeah.
you need to be looking at these vendors before you present to make sure that your numbers are aligned with where you need to be to run your business profitably. Not
Yeah.
just to get by, not just to pay your salary that you hope to cover from leaving another job, like that you're paying yourself, keeping the lights on, and putting money in the bank account for the rainy days.
Yep. Exactly. And I have this conversation a lot with designers, but if they're, because they'll talk about working with builders or any kind of build partner that insist on purchasing and procuring. And it said, if that's the case and you love working with them, ask them then to just purchase through you. Because and so that's another way to go about it. I don't often do it
Mm,
that way, but that is I've heard that it works. Is you ask, okay, fine, you want to be purchasing, well then you purchase through us. We typically have the accounts. There's I worked with this builder this year who was a wonderful experience, but they end up calling me going, "Oh, well, we don't have an account with such and such." Like, well, why don't you just let me deal with it, But that's another way if you're butting heads with the builder and you need to be making your profit and then they want to be doing the purchasing, is just to run it through you, let them purchase through you.
yeah, I never thought about that. That's a smart idea too.
I think it gets complicated. I try to avoid it, but I do know that it can work, or even if it's just lighting or tile or vendors you have those good accounts with.
Yeah, because obviously we've specified we're the ones that did the due diligence and we've done the work to make sure that's the right piece and the right item fits and all the dimensions work. In my mind, we should be able to be the ones that purchase that item.
Yes. Yeah, because then it's installed in the wrong color,
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
matter no matter all the documentation you give them, somehow it gets purchased and installed in the wrong color. So,
Yeah, fair.
yeah.
Okay, so or like listen, like the other thing is now, I mean, this I'm not so sure this has happened to you, but as soon as that like the client will Google Lens or the contractor will Google Lens an image and then they are in charge of buying it and it comes in and that's not the right size.
Yeah.
That's a knockoff and it's the wrong size, wrong scale, nothing works, but they got it cheaper. You should.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Don't
that's
shop it. Yeah.
exactly what it looks like.
Don't work
Okay.
out.
So let's walk through on because pricing construction and profitability can be tricky. So what key numbers and metrics do you think that every designer who's considering this should understand before taking on a construction related project? Let's face it, running your own interior design business can feel overwhelming. But guess what? You don't have to do it alone. I am so excited to introduce a brand new way to get the support you need. one-on-one mentorship with me, Laura Thornton, your interior design bestie. In just one focused hour, we'll dive into whatever you need most, whether that's pricing strategies, client management, presentations, attracting clients, building up a repeat business, or just getting out of the hamster wheel. You'll get clarity, strategy, and expert advice based on my 28 years of running a thriving business and over the last decade, a seven-figure design firm. This is your chance to get real answers to the questions you've been dying to ask from someone who's actually been there and is currently still walking the walk. Book your session as you need it. There are no strings attached. You'll walk away with personalized, actionable advice that you can implement right away. One-on-one, 1-hour sessions as you need it. Head to the website or click the link in the show notes to book your mentorship session, and let's build a beautiful, profitable business that you've been dreaming of together.
Good question. For me, let's say I'm doing it the way I'd like to do it. Okay. So the client's coming to me, they're hiring me. I'm going to we're hourly based, by the way, but I'm going to be able to say, hey, you're looking at an estimate of X and X hours for this project. I'm always able to quote usually within 20 to 30 hours of what it looks like, even with construction, because I've just done it so much. Right now, we charge hourly for project management too, but I am thinking and playing with a monthly project management fee, just because, again, I have the data. I know how long it takes us. And I think it's more palatable for the clients to know during when we're in the trenches and we're there for 3 months or however long, 6 months, that they know, okay, I'm paying this much a month, as opposed to like, oh my God, there was 40 hours in project management this month. So I think, because I'm always thinking about client experience, right?
Me
And
too.
what's going to be easier for them through this process. So again, toying with that, haven't really executed it yet. So right now it's all hourly. So that's for our fees, putting that aside. And then, typically we bring in our contractors. We're in Georgia. In Georgia, you cannot act as a GC. So that is a separate contract. But we will manage all of it. So they're going to know, what they're paying for all of those labor fees. And then they're paying that separately. And then, obviously we go through the designs and everything approved, we're purchasing. And usually I like to see those profit margins. They level out around 30%, honestly. Because it's construction materials. Some we do better than others. And I feel like when I look at the numbers at the end of the project, we're at 30%. And something else that I don't mark up above retail for my clients. That is something that I offer. I know some firms do, and that works, and that's fine, but they are purchasing at that retail cost or at that MSRP. And I think that makes them feel more comfortable throughout the process, knowing they're not paying, 20% more than retail costs.
Same.
So that kind of locks in our profit margin. So you're looking at, okay, I'm making X amount of hours on this project plus that percentage, and then you can get your big picture, and
yeah. I'm the same. And so just for anyone listening, you said you were hourly. I used to do that and for years and years, and also exactly the same, always thinking about the client. And I always put myself in their shoes, and I equate it to like going out to buy a car. It could cost you 50 grand, but if you decide to put all these options in, it also could cost you 100 grand. And you're not going to really know how much it's going to cost until we're done. So it doesn't feel good. So at one point, because I had so much data and had been doing this for so long and had my analytics and my metrics, I was able to pretty much figure out how to do this at a different rate. So I charge a flat rate for it based on the invoice amount. So it's a tiered percentage. But it comes down to like exactly what it would have been if I had calculated it hourly. But it helps my clients know exactly what they're paying. They feel so much better about it, and they never question. I've never had the pushback ever again, because I've had, well, how did we get to this many hours? And how did we, like, there's always the questions with an invoice and why some months are less than others and more than others. So this way it just took it all out of the equation, and it's rolled right into the invoice at the beginning. And it was a game changer for us on securing the next phase of each project. But it's to your point, it's about what makes the client feel good about signing this contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, where we are hourly based, I use that kind of just to save us because you know what I like, we obviously figure out the scope before a project starts and it's in the contract, but I'm okay with the scope growing throughout the project. So that hourly helps us to go, okay, guess what? We've just added this to the project. That's an extra, X
Yeah.
amount of hours. But I am able to really give, like, again, like I said, within 20 hours of where the project's going to land.
Which
And
is huge. Yeah.
yeah, and I always honor that unless we're growing scope. So again, they're having that number up front, which I think is important, especially when
Yeah.
we're getting into construction. And of course, we do our best to manage that budget, but we know how change orders go, and we know how, there's rats in your walls or mold in your walls.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know
Yeah.
it's a demo. Those numbers are going to change.
Yeah. And so if someone's listening and not used to that, I call that scope creep also. And I think that was a
Yeah.
good point that you brought up because this is where your contract becomes your best friend. And so as soon as there's something that's not already covered in your contract, this is where you pump the brakes and say, that's not covered in the contract. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to send you an invoice and we're going to, or an estimate. This is the amount of hours we think it's going to take. You need to approve it. And then we're going to send you another contract to sign. So that's how I always use my contract as my buddy because I for years would just be like, "Oh, we'll just do that. Like we'll just do it. It won't take much time." And it was killing your profits because you're
Yeah.
constantly giving away free work. So that's
Yes.
where your contract comes into play. So I just want to back up a little bit because what I was hearing was when you were talking about the previous question, you were using your profit margins and your analytics to figure out where you were going to be on that project profitability wise. Does that mean that you will use those tools to figure out whether or not a job is worth taking on?
Yes. Yes. And I'm getting better at forecasting, but I think that that's so important, especially when construction. I mean, a furnishing job, we always sort of know what we're in for, and it's easier to forecast.
Hmm.
The construction job, we don't. And we don't always know how many months we're going to be on it, as much experience as we have. So yes, I do use those numbers to kind of figure out where we're going to be and make sure that it's worth it. So we're not all working for free on
Yeah.
month 4 and 5. And that's what, again, I think it's impossible to run your business off of just making design fees. It's just impossible. So
Yeah,
anybody,
it's limiting for
yeah,
sure.
you can't it's not possible, it's not possible. And if you
Yeah,
ever get
there's only so many
clients,
hours in a day, in a week, in a month, in a
I
year, you're
mean,
tapped out. Yeah.
exactly. So, if a client ever asks why, why they're paying both, then they're not your client.
Fair.
Goodbye. Period.
Yeah.
I'm not going to explain it anymore.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
Uh, and because I know I get asked a lot, do I do room minimums or project minimums?
Yeah.
And I've never I've never subscribed to that because it doesn't mean anything if you don't know what products and pieces are going in or where the profitability can be. So you could have $1 million project, but you could only make 100 grand. That's
Right.
not, is
Yep.
that profitable?
Yep.
Slightly, but did it take you 2 years? Then you've lost everything. So I don't subscribe to that, even though I know that seems to be a real popular business model these days. I would rather have a discussion about the project. Let's see what you're looking for. To your point, you learn the more you do, the more analytics you have, the more data you have. It's very easy to figure out if that's going to be a profitable project for you, the designer.
Yes. And I agree. I don't have project minimums either. I have my minimums in my head, and then I decide what I'm going to take on, because it could be, as again, a one room project where we're not earning that many design fees. It's not going to take that much time,
Hmm.
but the profitability we make in the product is great. So I think it's actually turns off clients when you're like, well, sorry, we have $100,000 minimum. Well, what does that even mean? Right? What does
Yeah.
that even mean? Is that design fees? Is that product? Like, clients don't really understand that. They just hear that number and run. So yeah, I don't, and it work again. I'm not, it works for some people, but that's not how I run my business either. And, this is, I think 13 years in business, this is somewhat embarrassing to admit, but I will. I of course have a CPA and accountant, but I run my own books. I cannot get out of it. I run my own books. I like to know what is going on. Like to know where every cent is going. And I haven't given that up yet. I don't, those are control issues that maybe I'll work on later, but it really works for me. It really works for me because then I really know what's going on and I don't have to have those minimums because each job I'm figuring out, what the profitability is before we say, yes, this is something we're going to take on.
So you are like my people because I'm the same way. I do have a team of accountants that I brought on years and years and years ago. And every year when we meet to go over the final, like, we talk every month, but at the end of the year I get together with like four of them and one of me across the table. And every year they're like, are you finally going to trust us and let us like pay your bills and do your checks? And every year the answer is no.
No.
So
Yeah.
you can do all the like you can do the GST, the taxes, all the things, which I can easily do and see. But
Mhm.
they do payroll. They do all the things that like take and
Sure.
buy me back time.
Yeah, but
But
you see what's going out, what's
oh
coming.
yeah, we both have access to everything. But I write every check. They do not make any payments on my behalf. I
Hmm.
mean, I am 51 years old this year, and Oprah raised me after school. And I remember her saying, sign your own checks, sign your checks. And I have heard some horror stories from other designers about letting
Yes.
go of their accounting. And the next thing you know, the accountant has a whole new room at their house full of restoration hardware because they were running it through their business and they weren't noticing. And like, I am
Wow.
like you, I am a control freak in so many ways, but money, I can tell you right now what's in my bank account. I look every day, multiple times a day. I know exactly what's going in. I know exactly what's going out. I
Yeah.
know exactly how much it costs me to run my business yearly, monthly, weekly. Like you have to know these things if you're running a business.
You
This is
have to.
important.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
And,
I mean,
and
you can trust somebody to sign your checks. I just don't. I have
no,
never have.
I
Yeah.
have my operations, manager will write checks, but I sign them all. So I'm seeing because cash flow
Yeah.
is so important in this business too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you always hear about, we're low on cash flow this month or whatever. It happens with how payments come in, but you have to know what your cash
Yeah.
flow is. You have to understand that. And I, I'm very busy, but I'm really looking at those numbers. Sometimes weekly, but really once a month. Once a month, we're really getting into like the profit and loss of the month and just making sure we're charging appropriately and it just allows you to be able to change processes if needed because you understand what's happening and like you were saying I was talking to some designers recently and they had hired third party companies and lost a lot and they
Mm-hmm.
don't even know how to rectify it in the end like they just don't even know where to start it's really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just making sure who you're working with is aligning price point wise. Like I've been working with the same accounting company for probably 12 to 15 years. And the last 2 or 3 years, they keep coming at me and saying they want more money every month. They're
Mhm.
going to be increasing my fees. And then I have said, well, then I'm going to shop you because you don't do everything for me.
Yeah.
Because it's always the owners that are coming. And I'm like, I do this, 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 and this. And they're just blanketly raising fees everywhere without
Yeah.
doing their due diligence and seeing that I don't give you, you don't write my checks, you don't do that. So every
Yeah.
time I push back and say, but you don't do that for me. You only do A, B, and oh, okay, well, we'll reassess next year. So
Hmm.
don't just take it blanketly either that you keep owing more money. You can be
Right.
shopping, you can figure out what you need and what you don't need, and you can make sure that it fits. Because my husband recently sold his business a couple of years ago and now started a new business. So he's gone to work, he's working with them as well. So I can see what they charge him a month. And I'm like, wait a second. So anyway,
I'll have
just a
to
sidebar,
consider.
but make sure you're
Yeah.
also shopping your accountant firm. Like
Yeah.
make sure that that aligns with you as well, that they're not charged. Because it was getting into a point where I was like, this is getting silly how much I'm paying them. And I always feel like, of course, we're control freak. We can do it. I did it for years. It's not like it's not like it's something I can't do, but it takes 8 hours of my month to do the
It's
accounting.
just not
So
that it's not that hard when you really and I feel like outsiders that are not in the design world or the design businesses don't really understand how the financial structure of the business works. So uh,
yeah,
I feel like anytime I've outsourced someone, even with my accountant I've worked with for many years, it's like I'm still explaining like where the revenue streams come from and how it works. And for me, it's just so second nature. It's easy for me to do. So sure, I could let it go and have more time for whatever, but
yeah, I choose it. Yeah.
yeah, I choose it. Right.
Me too. And the other thing to your point, I did use a company that kind of specializes in the construction field because I felt that that was important too, that they understood. Now, design, they did not understand. Construction, they understood. So retainers and things that we used to do, I don't do that anymore, but we used to do that. That was something that they weren't used to. That took so I mean, finding the right person, I think in any capacity of your business to work with is important, but if they understand a little bit better your business, it's better. So, okay, so accounting, let's put that to the side. Let's hope
Okay.
that you're all making so much money that you need a good accountant, but
Yes, I hope so.
okay, so adding construction management into your business, how did it change your revenue experience for you? Because we just touched on how we're limiting ourselves with hours and in design. So how has that altered your profitability? I don't need numbers. I just mean
Well, just
overall.
meaning like us project managing the whole process, right? Not just design. It's huge because we are making that, if you're just doing design on a project for construction, then you're just doing design. So you're making X amount those upfront few months of design, and then it's crickets, while you're doing project execution, you're not making anything. And then you haven't purchased anything. So you've just literally made your design fees on a project. It's just not enough. So how has it changed profitability? I mean, it just adds to, the bottom line of you're still pretty much billing design fees throughout the whole entire project. Again, on top of the procurement, which I think is the ticket. Like
Hmm.
it's really important if you can
Game
manage
changer.
that. Yeah, it is a game changer. It
I
is.
also want to touch on anyone who's not experienced this, the longevity of a construction project.
Yeah.
So, you might be used to decorating and design in terms of rooms, and you can wrap those up in 4 to 5 months, maybe at the longest amount of time. But construction can go on for years. You could have like we have projects that take 2 years from the fruition design phase to the actual we're done. Here is
Yeah.
your care package. And it's a 2-year process. So these are
Mhm.
not quick projects. These are not things that are turning over quick. And so this
Right.
revenue stream over this amount of time can be beneficial, or it could also be that it throws off, so once in a while you can plan all you want, but it does throw off the flow of your business sometimes if things all of a sudden all end up at I always find all the permits come in at the same time, and I have all these projects
Yeah.
that were like held up, and now they're all ready to roll.
I know. That's one
But
thing you can't manage, right? You never
no,
know.
you can't manage that part. But I feel like I could hold you up here forever, so I'll be more concise. But it is something where I think I would love to cover how long and the expectations of a length of a project, an average
Yeah.
project for you is.
Okay, let's go small. Say we're just doing a kitchen reno from from start to completion. Let's say maybe 4 to 6 months, right? Assuming that we're designing for a month or two with edits, and then we're kicking off construction 2 months at the bare minimum. Bare minimum. So, those are easier to figure out. But when you're doing a full home, you could know it could be, and you can talk to your contractors and you hope that they're giving you a proper timeline. But yeah, these can go on for 2 years. And can you imagine like how much bandwidth it's taking from your team? And then you're
Hmm.
not charging properly,
Hmm.
like you're just losing money. You're losing money and you're losing all the energy that you have, and you can't work on other projects because this job is taking so much from you. So that's why it's so important to understand approximately how long something's going to take you and about how much you're profiting on that a month. Break it down by month. That might help you get your head around it more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And I add in all of our quotes at the end, like the approximate length of time. And I always add 4 weeks, always,
Yeah.
because I always find the contractor is never right for starters, but also
No.
they never allot for, they never allot for the things that once they're done, meaning like the counter templating comes in.
Yeah.
Then they walk away for
Yeah.
used to be 2 weeks. Now it's an easy 3 weeks. Then the plumbing
Yeah.
needs another couple of days. So I always add that extra month because I feel like they never account for the templating and the counters. But anyway, sidebar.
Yeah, no, right.
Just
Right. Or the shower glass that always somehow
yes.
takes an extra 2 or 3.
Yes. So
Yeah.
you're this
Yeah.
close to being done and then you're not.
Yeah.
Okay. So any
Or just
designers
punch
listening,
list. You need
Oh
to
yeah,
time sometimes.
deficiencies. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I always add a little bit of buffer time so that you're
yeah,
never having to apologize for now. They think that they're in their home because you might say approximately, but they read it as a hard number.
I
They
know.
they think that just that date, whatever it is they're in their home. And so they are always looking at that as the end game. And then all you're doing is disappointing them if you don't
Uh-huh.
meet it. So I always try to give myself a little bit of a buffer because then if we do come in a little earlier, you look like a hero.
Yeah.
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 I'd rather look like a hero than
Here,
a zero. So
absolutely.
so any designers listening and they're considering to expand into construction, what would you say is the first step they should take?
Well, first step, okay, understanding construction. Well, I mean, you got to start with the project, right? So I would, and I think I like what you said earlier about getting in there and asking questions and understanding. So start small, start with a small bathroom
Hmm.
and, see how that goes and do all the procurement and see where your numbers land. And because I think it's a learning, I don't think there's a way to explain what's the right way to do it, a right way to go about it. You have to experience it. You have to go through it. You have to lose money. You have to make a mistake. And then you go, okay, great. Not going to do that again. I need my profit margins to be around 30%. This company's only giving me 15% on tile. What can I do differently? You're contacting your vendors to try to, work those relationships out on one end. And then, you're working out, making sure you have the right construction team. I mean, there's designers that have been in the business as long as me, and they're coming to me going, how do you find the right construction teams? I think that's number one. It's like finding that partner that you can trust, because you don't want them throwing you under the bus during the project. You really need someone. And I know you have people on staff for you, but that's not typically the case for most companies.
Hmm.
So you really have to find the right construction partners that you can trust. Um,
Yeah, and you'll have to kiss some frogs to find the prince. Like,
you will. And you will.
yeah,
And that's where my control comes in too. Like the client's hiring me, everything goes through me. I don't allow too much face time with the contractor and the client. And I
fair.
make sure it's clear. And I think that's important too. Managing your process and your client relationships is make sure everything is filtering through you. Yes, it is a lot more work. Yes, you are sending those weekly reports. Yes, your phone is never, it's blowing up, but it's important
Hmm.
to, make
Yeah.
sure you're controlling that process and that client experience.
Yeah, and exactly to your point, like you want to be the face of it and every question should filter through you. It
Yes.
shouldn't go to the client, it should all
No.
come through you. Yeah. Okay, Gabrielle, thank you so much for sharing your insight. I have taken up way too much of your time, but where can our listeners follow you? Like work, connect, find you online? How can they learn more about
Sure.
Cello Studios?
So website is silostudiodesign.com. Instagram is Silo Studio Design. I think those are the two best places to find us.
Thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, I
Yeah,
could be
this
here
is
all day
great.
with you because
Yeah.
it's so nice to connect with someone who does what I
Yeah.
do. It's not often that we could get on to being the only like about being women on a job site, but that might be
Yeah.
a whole other
Oh, that's a whole other can of
that's
worms.
part two. Yeah.
Yeah. That's part two. No, it was great talking to you too. I learned from you. It was enjoyable.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
All right. Take care. Have a good one.